Live, local Dale Jackson Show. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here and joining us this morning. We got a lot to get into today. In our next segment, we're going to speak with Rachel Bryars. She is here with us to talk about a piece she has written for Yellowhammer News. Go to yellowhammernews.com. You can sign up for the 7 things that you should be talking about today, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff for you to get into as well. There's a lot of great content up there. If you are following politics in the state of Alabama, it needs to be your first stop. And it needs to be your second stop and your third stop. So get in there and check all of that out. She wrote a piece about Tom Brokaw, oddly enough. And I think that this is an interesting piece because it's from the perspective of a woman who's saying, hold on one second. Maybe we should look more at these cases before we immediately start torching people and throwing their careers in the toilet because some woman said something about them. Now, I've watched as the media has sort of reacted to other women coming out, like Rachel Maddow and Andrea Mitchell and all these other people saying, hey, he's been good to me. They've sort of been kind of ripping on them some are seeing that as hypocrisy, much like the Joy Reid situation where Joy Reid massacres people and then everyone's like, wait a second, let's listen to what she has to say. You took a little bit of a different position, Rachel. First off, thanks for being here. Why must we think, to quote your words, about this Tom Brokaw thing a little different before we condemn him?
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Dale. Yeah. It's great to be here. So I think the trouble here is that there's an important movement out there. Nobody's going to deny that the Me Too movement, this is an important time in American culture. Women need to be heard. Nobody is saying that is not true. However, we can't just leap out there and say that every single case should be looked at equally. Is Bill Cosby to be the same in our judgment as a Tom Brokaw? To my mind, those words are very important. We can't say that just because she says I was assaulted, that is so. I think we have to examine these things. Do we need to listen to accusers? We must listen to accusers. But
we've been told repeatedly we must believe all women. Basically, the argument, we've shifted the burden of proof from innocent until proven guilty to let's look at the allegation to you're guilty unless you can prove you're not. I mean, that's the shift we've seen, right?
Well, and I think we should all ask ourselves, what can we do about that? Because everybody has a man in their life that they love or they respect, that this could be them. This could be them where someone is accusing them of something, and then they're just run out on a rail before anybody stops and says, wait a minute. Let's listen to both sides. Let's hear what they both have to say. And I have to say, Tom Brokaw has come out very strongly and said, hey, I did not do these things. Here is my side of the story. And I think he did a good job to get out in front of it. Now,
so
is he
Roy
guilty?
Moore.
I have no idea.
Here's my response. So did Roy Moore.
Okay.
He came out and said, I did not do these things. He strongly denied them. Trump got massacred when people said, well, Roy Moore denied it. And that was Trump's argument. Well, he denied it, and he's basically saying, prove it. So, what's the difference?
Okay, well, I think that, voters had to make a decision. There was an election. He did not, I don't think, come out very strongly. If you listen to him on Sean Hannity, you would say, wait a minute, this is not a strong rebuttal of these charges. This causes me a bit of doubt. We gave him on Yellowhammer News multiple chances to please come on, write an op-ed, talk to our, talk to
He wouldn't talk to me either. He wouldn't go on talk radio. He wouldn't go anywhere. And by the way, I voted for the guy, and he still wouldn't come on and talk to me because he thought I would ask him hard questions. He wanted only safe environments. He went on Scott Beeson, the former state senator show. He went on his show because, and I like Scott Beeson, but Scott Beeson basically said, here you go, here's a microphone.
Oh, absolutely. And I think if you are somebody who's been accused of something, you have to go out and say, hey, here's my side of the story. And if you're not willing to do that, then you are subjecting yourself to the court of public opinion. You are saying, in effect, you can listen to another side of the story and make your decision based on that alone. You have to be willing to get out there and say what you believe to be the facts of the situation. And I think that people need to, what I meant by stop and think is stop and think, stop and listen. Don't be so quick to try to jump out in front of things and make your judgments.
Rachel, only certain people get that luxury of stop and think. Michael Cohen, or Cohn, or depending on what outlet you're talking about right now, who determining how they say his name, they said something about Hannity being one of his clients, and people immediately, it must be some sexual harassment thing. There wasn't even an allegation, and people wanted to string Hannity up for it. And Brokaw here on the other side is he's getting the luxury of this. What makes Brokaw different?
I think that he's probably different in that he's being called to the floor to answer for something that maybe lots of men aren't, but he's a public figure. And so that's why someone's coming out and saying, look what Tom Brokaw did to me, and drawing a lot of attention to it.
Does Rachel Maddow do the same thing if this exact same allegation is made about Sean Hannity?
Oh, that's a great question.
Does she say, this is about Sean Hannity, and then Dana Perino writes a letter, Sean Hannity's always treated me with great respect.
Yeah.
What happens to Dana Perino in that situation?
I think that what we're going through in media and the culture at this moment, you cannot be an honest person and not ask yourself that question. Rachel Maddow must be asking herself that question. And you know what? There's probably going to be another opportunity for her to prove whether she is fair or not.
I mean, it's weird because at MSNBC, there's almost this vacuum where Brian Williams, Joy Reid, and now Tom Brokaw can operate with these allegations hanging over their head because they're the ones that come with the pitchforks. And because they're not using the pitchforks on their own. We'll continue with Rachel Bryars from YellowhammerNews.com. Keep it locked right here. We'll keep talking with her on this issue. Stay tuned.
You're listening to The Dale Jackson Show.
Live local Dale Jackson Show. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate your time here today. Rachel Bryars is with us from YellowhammerNews.com. She's written a piece about Tom Brokaw, saying, before we condemn Tom Brokaw, we must stop, we must think. And this is something that's not generally happening. And in this story, you reference some stats here, which I find pretty amazing. Men tend to think mistakenly, tend to think that women are more sexually interested in them than they actually are. That's the story of my life, which some researchers say may contribute to sexual harassment. Men tend to assume that the more attractive a woman is, the more interested she is in sex. Men tend to lose self-control around women they find sexy. And again, these are the things that are happening. This is all backed up by research. And again, you even say, I'm not making excuses for that kind of stuff, but that's just a reality. I read the allegations against Tom Brokaw. Is he making the argument that these events never took place, or is he making the argument that they never crossed over to harassment?
He's making the case that Linda Vester, who has come forth with these allegations, that she approached him and said, "Hey, I'm interested in learning more about my career. I need some career advice. So can we meet at different occasions and talk about it?" That's what he's saying is his side of the story, that he did meet with her, but that the things that Linda said did not occur the way she said them. And I mean, who knows what happened? There was no one there. We're probably not going to be able to find that out. What I take issue with is that word assault, and even the word that Variety used, the word grope. I think words need to mean something. And do I think if true, if Tom Brokaw did this, is that bad? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I certainly am not saying, hey, men will be men and this is what you need to do. Just accept that. Absolutely not. What I am saying is assault, what Bill Cosby did. This is not what Tom Brokaw has been accused of. Is tickling somebody along their waist, is that groping? I don't think it is, Dale, and I think that we do an injustice to victims.
But it's inappropriate, right?
Yeah, sure, inappropriate. And look, this was also 20 years ago. So I don't know that we can judge folks based on today's standards. I
agree with that. I always say, look, we live in a world where we want people to live in some sort of dream scenario where the 1865s. Or 1865 should be judged exactly the same as it is now, and it's just not true.
Yeah,
it's just not a true situation for where we live. I mean, they're trying to tear down statues of a guy who did medical experiments on slaves that led to, and this is kind of in the weeds, but women after giving birth for up until this happened were incontinent the rest of their life. There was a good chance that they would just be incontinent the rest of their life because of the damages of giving birth, and they found that there was a way to fix some of this. Anyway, he did stuff on slaves. Now they've removed his gynecological statue. I mean, a statue that honored him for this. So we live in a world where we're living in different times. But Tom Brokaw, I read this, and she's like, would you like to get some cookies? That kind of stuff. Is he saying that never happened? Because it sounds to me like he's kind of was like hitting on her, and is hitting on someone's sexual harassment. That's, I think, the line that we've drawn. Because, for a lot of us, if we can't, this is going to sound terrible, but we operate in the real world here on the Dale Jackson Show. If we can't date our coworkers, some of us are never going to date. I mean, that's what you spend time with your coworkers. You spend all this time with them. That's just a reality of life. Is there something to be said for if this is the standard in which we live, that society's changed significantly?
Well, I think what you just said, that, we function in the world of reality. That's why I even put those studies in my article. Again, it's not to make excuses, but I think we have to say, okay, what is the reality of relationships with men and women, or just romantic relationships, people working together? There is research evidence that you put people together in close proximity, even if it's just friendship, they're going to start to like each other.
Yeah.
Now, is that going to turn into a romantic relationship? Probably not. But people working together, is it so bad that somebody might find the one at work? I think there's an argument that that's not so bad. Now, a married man being immoral, I think we can make an argument that is not a good thing. And I think what culture is missing right now is saying, hey, here's reality. Let's inject some virtue into that on the personal level. Let's work on ourselves and say, hey, we're gonna hold ourselves to a high standard. But no, culture doesn't want to do that. Culture wants to get rid of virtue. Culture wants to say it's absolutely ridiculous what Mike Pence tries to do as far as personal standards.
Yeah, and he got mocked for it.
Oh, he's completely
He
mocked.
was called a Puritan.
Right.
And mocked and mocked and mocked and mocked. And then his standard of, maybe I shouldn't go out to have dinner with women who are not my wife, or go to an event where alcohol is if my wife's not there. Maybe I should not do these things. He was mocked and mocked and mocked. And now we're basically pushing towards that standard. And that's going to work to the detriment of women. Sorry, I hate to say it that way. I told a woman one time, obviously this didn't happen because I hired LT. I told a woman one time, after working with you, I will never hire another woman. Because she didn't like something I had done, so she made sort of an offhanded comment about sexual harassment or sexual, not misconduct, but what do you call it? Gender discrimination. That was generally the gist she made. And I was just like, why would I ever put myself in this situation again? And I think that will play itself out on a much larger scale. Is there a fear there?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's not just, I don't think it's just women. I think it's, if we use these terms, that person's a racist, that person's, they're a sexist, and we just throw these terms out there, I think the natural reaction is to start to protect yourself and start to ask yourself, well, okay, what is the risk there if let's say I hire a woman? Now, maybe you wouldn't overtly go out of your way to not hire a woman, but somewhere in the back of your mind you might say, well, I don't know, what if she says this about me? And I think we just have to be careful again to let words mean something.
Hey, when people start getting pounded on something, they start watching out. And there's been evidence that indicates that after the Americans with Disability Act was passed, Americans with disabilities, unemployment went up. Because people were like, hold on, so if I hire you, I have to take a billion different precautions, or I could just not hire you. And I think that a lot of people, as unfair as that may be, that is sort of the outcome of some of this, because there are people who are fearful of this. I mean, very fearful. I mean, I've worked with people who wouldn't go into a closed-door meeting with a woman because of the fear of what might be said. I've been in a meeting where someone said, I go into a room and have a conversation with a guy, and then a woman walks in, shuts the door behind her, and they say, open the door. And I think that sort of, and women, I hate to be, I sound like I'm being this like guy from the 1950s, but if you're in a business where happy hour comes, and you go out and have drinks, now you're going to be kind of weary of going out with your female coworkers and going and having those drinks because of a fear of what might happen. I mean, that's a fear.
Well, and again, I think that the person who goes out and makes a very clumsy pass at somebody is quite different than somebody who assaults an individual, or who, preys upon young women when they can't defend themselves. I think those are very different things. I just think we have to be careful about that. And I will say, Megyn Kelly said on her show, hey, I love Tom Brokaw. I believe he's she she supported Tom Brokaw. However, she did say, look, you don't know what you don't know. And when Megyn Kelly said, when I was going through this over at Fox, people would always say to me, why didn't you come forward? Why didn't you say what happened to you? And she said, look, you can't ask me that question until you ask me the first question, which is there a safe way for me to come forward? So I do think there has to be mechanisms for women who are harassed or assaulted or whatnot to be able to report those things at work. That's a must. That's absolutely. But I also think it's incumbent upon women to stop and ask themselves, what is my motivation? Is what I'm saying, does it match the words I'm using to describe it? What is the purpose? And just all of us give each other
and I think
chance.
Another thing is, what's their intent? What is their intent? What is the intent of the individual? We are, like, for example, there was this thing on the weekend. This weekend, you probably have some thoughts on this. A young lady went to prom. I don't know if you've seen this. She wore a dress that was Oriental themed, for lack of a better term, and it was a Chinese sort of nice Chinese dress. And people are killing her, and they're calling her a racist. And I just think to myself, what is the intent here? She's not wearing blackface, so she's not just completely culturally ignorant. She is wearing a dress that she thought looked nice, and people are basically saying, oh, my culture's not a costume, and things like that. And it's just, so what's her intent? Her intent was to go to prom and look nice. And now people are trying to destroy her life.
We take such offense. That's the thing that
people aren't even offended about that. They're just being terrible.
Look, I have 5 kids, and
I don't know how. I have one, and he's like 3 weeks old, and it's terrible.
Well, I'm concerned as a mother that my kids say, we do our best, but they're coming up in a culture that tells them it's okay for them to take offense at every little thing, and I push back. Even with each other, they get in these little squabbles, and I'm like, your brother and sister, it is not their job to protect your feelings. You can debate and you can talk about these things, but, and look, they have a lot of example, and Pepper and I, we debate all the time. So we're not allowed to just plead the my feelings are hurt card.
Okay, so Pepper is a reference to her husband, who also the editor of YellowhammerNews.com. You guys do a lot with Alabama politics. This is the driving force behind this website. You're an editor there, and you are constantly having to clean up my mess. How hard is that? I write 2 things a day. And in between, I guess some of the I don't want to say salty language, but sort of the aggressiveness of what I write, and the fact that I am borderline illiterate. How hard is your job for me?
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I do not claim any credit for Dale Jackson's stuff. You can continue to send him the hate mail.
Yeah,
that is
please.
perfectly
That's
fine with me.
I'll take it.
I clean up a few little punctuation marks here and there, and maybe some capitalizations and that. Look, that's fun for me. Those folks are just weird like that. They like to correct punctuation and all that. I'm good. I think the harder thing is to get out there and to have courage to say what you think every day. So kudos to Dale.
Let's talk about that for a second. You got some feedback from this that was not friendly. And I read some of it, and I was like, wow. I think that this is just offensive stuff. Overly offensive stuff. I'm not going to get into what it is, but there were essentially, well, I guess you've never experienced it, but more vulgar. I saw that. I saw it. It was terrible, and I don't think there's any place for that, and I'm a big believer in if you're going to act that way, you're going to lose your permission to participate in the platform. That goes beyond disagreeing. What do you think when you see stuff like that?
Dale, I think that, and you know this better than I do because you've been doing this a long time, if you're going to get out there and share your opinion, you have to be willing to have people disagree with you. I'm okay with it. And I would actually just address that position and say, I am a woman. I think most women probably have stories. I certainly won't go into mine, but we do we have them. And so I think there is that sense as a woman that, look, I do understand. I absolutely understand. But that doesn't mean that we can't look at this as human beings, not just all the women huddle together and we're against men and all the men huddle together. And I think we have to be fair-minded. If somebody wants to criticize what I say, I'm fine with it. That's okay.
I thought it was just a little unfair. They acted like you had no experience in this or any of this. And look, the reality is, and I'll just be honest with you, I've seen people that I respect greatly in situations where you said clumsy pass. I'll put it that way. Where they made a clumsy pass, it was maybe inappropriate, and I just think to myself, their intent was nothing, but the reading of that is so bad, and the way that person took it. We're talking not life ending, career ending, and we are out there trying to get scalps all the time. That's what people are just. We are constantly living in a world where people, if they're offended, they want to take you down. They're interested in just utter, ultimate destruction. And I think your piece says maybe we should back off just a bit and not try to destroy people. Like, I'm writing a piece today, and my whole thing lately has been, this is why we hate you. This is why we hate you, directed towards the media. That's sort of my shtick I've been trying to push lately. This is why we hate you. So today I'm about to write a piece. This is why we hate you, Alabama edition. And I'm not trying to get Christopher Harris of AL.com fired. What I'm trying to do is show Christopher Harris how he's coming off. Basically, he wrote a couple of tweets in December of 2017 that basically said, "Oh, look, I'm in Alabama. I got a screen door. Now I need to get a spittoon and gain 200 pounds." And it's like, why are you talking to us this way? Like, you're blessing us from out of state to come work for a bunch of rubes. And I'm like, this is why we hate them. And again, you can be critical without trying to destroy.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the important part of this. So that's what I'm working on today. So enjoy running into that a little bit later. So we appreciate you. What you got? What are you working on? Anything else?
Hey, I'll be working on your piece.
Okay, so there we go. Rachel Bryars, thank you very much for being here. We always appreciate you coming in and share with us whatever you got. Go to yellowhammernews.com and check out more of her stuff. She's constantly writing good stuff out there, so go check it out. Go to yellowhammernews.com. Also, you can watch Guerrilla Politics on Yellowhammer News. Lots of great stuff coming from Yellowhammer News, so go check it out. We'll be back. Thanks for being here.
This is the Dale Jackson Show.